Hi everyone, I'm Mark and I'm also joined by my colleague Duco.
Good afternoon everybody.
Hi, and we're both systems engineers for Commvault. So what are we here to talk about? Well, whatever your business is striving for, it's going to be underpinned by infrastructure. Now that infrastructure could be yours, it might be rented from someone else, so for example the cloud, or it could be a hybrid infrastructure. It could involve the traditional three-tiered approach of compute, storage, or virtualization, or it could involve the invisible infrastructure approach of integrating compute, storage, and virtualization into an appliance. So today, we're going to focus on the continued importance of data protection and data management and how this goes hand in hand with both your existing and your future business infrastructure. So during this session, we'll be looking at the following. So first of all, we'll be looking at why data protection is still important for the modern infrastructure. So we'll be looking at what is modern infrastructure, what effect does it have on IT, and what if the built-in protection it provides isn't enough. Then we'll move on to the value of modernizing. So data protection can give much more than just backup and recovery. So we'll look at some use cases including dev and test, and also cloud and system migration as well. Then penultimately, we'll look at modern DR for your modern infrastructure. So this is very much moving away from traditional DR methods, such as having your backup tapes stored somewhere off-site or deploying expensive physical DR infrastructure, and moving towards cost savings and RPO and RTO benefits with DR in the cloud. And then lastly, we'll have a brief look at how Commvault can help you reduce costs and save time with our software-defined backup and data management solution, and what value we can add to this invisible infrastructure solution, and we'll have a focus on Nutanix, which is one of our technology partners. Okay, so let's start focusing on why data protection and data management still matter for modern infrastructure. So, what does modern infrastructure or next generation infrastructure, or I've also mentioned invisible infrastructure, what do these terms actually mean? Well, modern infrastructure comes in many forms: networking, systems for big data, object storage, and a spectrum of hybrid cloud models. So converged brings compute, storage, networking, and server virtualization into a single chassis that's centrally managed. Hyperverged takes this a step further with other components such as snapshotting, data deduplication, inline compression, WAN optimization, and more. So possibly even some backup capability as well. So hyperconverged can address broader, more flexible IT needs and can be easier to expand and can make use of commodity hardware depending on the direction that you go as well. So why is software defined in an infrastructure list? Well, some hyperconverged systems are based on the idea of the software-defined data center. However, we're still some way off from a real enterprise-ready software-defined data center just yet. With flash arrays, we have multiple flash memory drives instead of spinning hard disk drives, providing faster data reads and access whilst consuming around half the power. However, as you're probably aware, there's a cost implication involved with this greater performance as well. And then lastly, we have infrastructure as a service. So specifically, hyperscale clouds such as Azure or AWS, enabling up to 3 times faster implementation when compared to a private cloud, and this really helps boost agility. However, it can also add more complexity around data management at the same time. So there's no doubt that virtual cloud, mobility, social media and other trends have completely changed IT over the last 10 years. In fact, if you go back 20 years, which was when the current European Data Protection Act was launched, and the changes were of seismic proportions, and there's been a massive change in data growth as well. So whilst all this disruption has been taking place, some of the modern infrastructure components that I've just mentioned have changed to deal with the resulting issues around needing to be more scalable and to provide better business performance. So technologies such as flash and converged infrastructure are about having an impact. And they're certainly having an impact, but they're more incremental, so making a dent rather than dealing with the overall IT complexity, especially where data is concerned. So backup and data management can also be fragmented by budgets, M&A activity, leadership change, tactical purchasing, and lack of standards. So this diagram that we're looking on the right-hand side, this is a typical backup and data management solution. So it's built up of lots of fragmented point solutions that have disparate software and hardware elements. So a fragmented solution like the one that we're showing here will not only slow down the move to a modern infrastructure, it will also create challenges, well, not actually deal with challenges such as the GDPR. So for example, multiple disconnected silos of data, obviously there's no way that you can even begin to comply with the GDPR if you've got, as I said, these multiple disconnected silos of data. There's no way you can do effective data mapping or data searching. So the GDPR is coming in play into less than 2 years' time. And it's estimated that around about 21% of businesses reckon at the moment that they're compliant with this GDPR, this complete overhaul of the European directive. Now, you may well be thinking, well, Brexit, as far as if you're listening in the UK, that this probably doesn't matter a great deal. Well, it does. So this GDPR is a European directive, and first of all, it's going to take us a while in the UK to be out of Europe. And obviously, if you're still in Europe, this definitely counts for you as well. But in the UK, some industry experts are predicting it's going to take a lot longer than May 2008, which is when this GDPR becomes enforceable. And even taking this into account, you don't have to be in the EU for the GDPR to be applicable. So if you hold data on European citizens, then the GDPR is still relevant, even if you're not in Europe. So with this in mind, it's no wonder that self-protecting new hardware is attractive, but in most cases, the type of protection is limited to the hardware redundancy or replication, or at best, snap and replicate. And these parts do not make a comprehensive data protection solution that's needed to move towards GDPR compliancy, for example. So, before we look around the issues around snapshotting and replication of data on compatible arrays and NAS devices, it's important to clarify snap and replicate still very much have their place for a fast way of backing up critical workloads. Now, replication alone will merely copy any corruptions to your redundant systems. And even when snaps are involved, recovering from them can be, and obviously the management can be very can cause you quite a few problems. So let's have a look at why. So first of all, there's the cost. Now, some hyper-converged systems can leverage commodity hardware, and converged systems, however, they struggle with this. So alternative solutions will need to be sourced for snapping. There's also the vendor lock-in to consider, as well as getting more infrastructure or storage for storing those snapshots once they've been taken. Then there's the management piece as well. This is another challenge to think about. Array vendors may have snapshot capability, but do they provide that crucial application awareness? And if they do provide application awareness, Will it involve complex scripting or different management layers for those different applications? And how about retrieving specific data for things like reporting? And these problems grow if you've got multiple vendors to consider for snapshotting as well, and for snapshot management. So to me, though, the most critical element of this is recovery. So snapshotting for backup purposes can be lightning fast. However, there's rarely any indexing or application consistency searching for the data. It literally can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. So while, with multiple complex stages involved to get your missing data and your business critical application working together. So all of these issues are also applicable to the cloud if it's used for replicating data. Okay, let's move on to why modernizing backup and recovery is the key to the success of modern infrastructure, or really, when you think about it, any infrastructure. So let's walk through this diagram first. So this shows what can be achieved when you separate data management functions such as backup and recovery away from the infrastructure stacks and begin to centrally manage it, taking control of the hardware-related functions such as snap and replicate at the same time. So taking control of the data centrally can have an incredibly beneficial effect on staff time, and also choosing the right technology can speed up adoption of new modern infrastructures and help you get the most out of it. So with a sensible approach, backup and modernizing backup can also benefit the wider environment outside of converged and hyper-converged and flash, for example. So a backup and data management refresh, that's often swept under the carpet and it's deemed as too difficult. But doing this at the same time as a new infrastructure investment helps you build out the platform into more manageable chunks and can also help consolidate and automate data management and even help reduce hardware and software spend. So what happens with the cloud where the infrastructure is under the control of someone else? So on screen, we've got a few examples of what an effective data protection and management solution can help provide with both Azure and AWS. Things such as providing point-in-time data protection, helping to automate retention policies in the cloud if this is needed as well. There's also providing application consistency around running and recovering those mission-critical applications for both Azure and AWS, as well as easing the transition of moving these workloads back on-premise, so for example, for things like disaster recovery. Ideally, you'd also want a backup and data management solution that provides a single point of view of these hybrid environments with both on-premise management consoles as well as access to management capabilities online as well. Right, let's have a look at a couple of specific data recovery use cases across modern data protection. There's a lot more options available than just recovering data as part of disaster recovery or in case of another outage. So as we saw earlier, when we looked at snapping and replication, application awareness is critical to ensure that the data is in a recoverable state across physical servers, VMs, snapshotting, and obviously as well as different variants of the cloud and software as a service solutions such as Office 365. Now, compression and dedupe provide efficiency when you're moving those workloads. So add encryption and you can ensure that your data is secure regardless of where it's going to. And lastly, as well as efficient and effective backup, you should also have recovery flexibility. So for example, recovering workloads from the cloud back on premise. And depending on the application, it makes sense to have version independence as well. Another example would involve having a data management solution that is hypervisor agnostic, which can help provide a lot of flexibility around recovering and migrating whole virtual machines or files and folders across multiple hypervisors and even cloud platforms. So for example, you may well be looking at reducing some of your licensing costs around VMware VMs and potentially migrating those over to Hyper-V. Okay, so let's just have a look briefly then at modern disaster recovery and obviously how that affects your modern infrastructure as well. So we've touched on that already, but just to go into that very briefly. So from a DR perspective, it probably would make sense to start off with using the cloud for tier 2 or tier 3 data, probably with a recovery SLA of around about 3 to 4 hours. And obviously once you've tried it and tested it, you can then have a look at potentially using it also for tier 1 or for certain buckets of tier 1 data. So the cloud can provide cost-effective disaster recovery as someone else takes care of the physical infrastructure. And costs should be a lot lower as you're only using disaster recovery in the cloud for when you really need it or for when you're doing DR testing. Now, ideally, your data management solutions should automate disaster recovery to the cloud as much as possible, as well as providing reports regarding potential DR in the cloud chargeback, both for internal departments and also for external customers. So this very much summarizes the benefits of using modern infrastructure as well as implementing modern data management at the same time. So we're looking at things like supporting moving data to the cloud for both storage and compute, effective replication and point-in-time recovery, and also workloads converted to on-premise VMs on recovery when it's needed, and cost-effective uses such as DR that we just had a look at, but also migration and dev and test. And all the while implementing measures such as, and I've mentioned this before, encryption, dedupe, reporting, automation, and also hypervisor conversion as well. Okay, so Duco, just going to hand over to you now.
Thanks a lot, Mark. What has all this got to do with Commvault? Well, modern infrastructure vendors such as Nutanix tell us that their customers need comprehensive data protection. You'll see in just a moment how Commvault both complements and enhances a Nutanix solution to ensure all bases are covered. Commvault has been a leader in Gartner's Magical Quadrant for enterprise backup as software and integrated appliances for 6 years already. So we are a leading provider of unique data protection and information management solutions that help customers back up effectively, recover their data regardless of its original location. So we are currently on the 11th version of Commvault's solution portfolio, which is comprised of data protection and recovery, cloud virtualization, archive, file sync and share, all on a single platform. Nutanix knows that Commvault software addresses the data protection and information management challenges arising from limitations in legacy data center environments and accelerates the shift into virtualized and cloud-enabled data centers. By providing data protection support for VMware and Hyper-V with snap integration for the infrastructure, Commvault will be providing unique value add to Nutanix and their mutual customers. Bringing it all together, Commvault's single platform is unique in the data management industry. The combination of one virtual repository combined with a single universal index and a highly automated management and operations framework means you can handle the challenges of data growth, data velocity, increasing regularity and governance requirements, and extracting more value out of your data by activating it. What's the value to you? Commvault's platform can replace up to 20 individual products with their dedicated infrastructure and siloed data repositories. This enables our customers to actually reduce operational costs, shrink their administrative burden while scaling their data management to meet never-ending growth. Here you can see all these sources for your data management requirements like physical servers, virtual environments, mobile devices, private clouds, public clouds, for example, Amazon or Azure. And our so-called content store is the one virtual repository for all your data. With this content store, you will eliminate unnecessary copies of data, and this gives you the benefits of a single index, one version of the truth, and all through one interface, one single pane of glass. With Commvault, you will have access to all the requirements for modern data center and data management like deduplication, encryption, compression, tiering, and for example, archiving, as Mark already mentioned. With the built-in automation and consolidation, you'll have a very cost-effective backup and recovery solution with a cost savings up to 52%. And of course, with our industry-leading intelligent snapshot management, zero manual scripting application awareness, we can help achieve the RPOs and RTOs for your data. You will need just one solution to be able to manage up to 10 different types of hypervisors with comprehensive virtual server protection, incorporating VM lifecycle management, auto-detect and protect, and cost-effective archiving. And now I will show you the interface. It's a very simple interface. As you can see, it's a basic web interface, easy to manage and administer for everybody. There's another one. It's quite simple to use. In a 2015 survey, over 700 customers, they saw a reduction in end-user help desk support up to 42% by using these kind of interfaces. So Nutanix provides building blocks for scalable, resilient, automated infrastructure. And these are the black blocks. And the blue blocks are actually what you get with Commvault together. Commvault provides a comprehensive data management and a policy layer to ensure that data is automatically retained and archived at the right policy for every system, and that users get self-service access to their VMs and their data. It is worth calling out that we're the only backup and data management vendor that currently supports Nutanix Acropolis hypervisor. Commvault is also hypervisor agnostic and supports up to 9 other hypervisors, meaning we can easily enable users to change hypervisors as well, as it automatically protects any VMs that gets added to the environment. It will be automatically put into backup and into the lifecycle management that has been configured previously. And the snapshot orchestration and automation available via our IntelliSnap software provides application-consistent snapshots as well. So you have a faster recovery and better RTOs and RPOs, as I already mentioned. I think this is the slide for HV. Yep, there we go. So to summarize, while Nutanix is handling the physical hardware infrastructure and ensuring that the disk blocks are distributed across the platform, Commvault operates at the next layer, providing data management and access control. Specifically, Commvault gives you 3 things: backup and restore, workload portability, and end-user self-service. So by this is the end of the presentation. So we will open up for questions right now. So just give us a couple of seconds to see if there's any questions popping up, and we will get back to you.
Great. Actually, while we're waiting for the questions to come in, it's probably worth mentioning that we've added quite a few attachments to this presentation. So some of those statistics that Duku was mentioning earlier, saving between 42 and 52% on your backup and data management hardware and software costs, that's based on the feedback of over 722 Commvault customers who were independently surveyed by IDC. So that's one of the attachments that's included with this presentation. Duku also very efficiently went through our platform, and he touched on our content store. There's a white paper that we've attached, which is called "So What Is It We Actually Do?" And it very much focuses on how the majority of the value that we offer is driven through that content store. So that's definitely worth having a read. And then what we've also attached there is a couple of documents related to Commvault and Nutanix as well, because we've got over 70 technology alliances, but obviously today we're focusing on what we do with Nutanix. And in fact, just checking to see what questions we have, and Duku, you might be able to answer this one. So yes, we've mentioned our partnership with Nutanix and the value that we add, but the question that we've got here is, are there any other hardware vendors out there that we support?
Yes, well, absolutely. Commvault is very hardware agnostic, so although Nutanix delivers a very comprehensive solution in the hyperconverged infrastructure, it does not limit the customer to use Commvault in their existing environment. So Commvault has most applications, most storage vendors, and most applications or databases and things like that covered. So it's very easy to implement Commvault together with Nutanix in your existing environment. No problem at all. I got another question as well, Mark. It's about licensing. The question is it easy to license Commvault together with Nutanix?
Oh, right, okay, yeah. So we're on version 11 of Commvault. So around about version 10, we moved away from how we traditionally licensed to our customers, and that was very much based on a per terabyte all-you-can-eat capacity, where when you purchased us on that basis, we literally covered absolutely everything for you. I mean, we can replace up to 19 to 20 different backup and data management solutions. So that licensing, that per terabyte licensing based on the front end is still available. But from version 10 onwards, what we've also done is we've introduced more flexible licensing where that licensing is focused on specific point solutions. So for example, we have a VM backup solution set where the licensing is based on a per VM or per socket basis. We also have email backup and archive where it's based on a per mailbox, laptop and desktop backup where it's based on a per user basis. So just these point solutions that you can buy, but the beauty of getting those compared to other vendors. So for example, you might be looking at someone else for doing VM backup. Is with us, you can purchase us on a per VM, per socket basis, but when you're ready to actually perhaps get us to do more within your environment, you can just unlock that capability through licensing. And that initial hardware investment that you would have made to run us for your VM backup, you'd only need to make that hardware investment once. And then anyone else who's going to be using Commvault for other things outside of VM backup, it's all, as Duku mentioned before, single pane of glass. It will all be that same management platform to use. So training costs are going to drop drastically because of it. Okay,
I think that covered the question, so that is good. I didn't get any other questions.
No, I think those are the two questions that we have. So, Duku, any sort of final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Well, we'd like to thank everybody for their time today, and I think we did a good job staying within half the hour. And I wish everybody a pleasant day.
Great stuff. Okay, and just the final slide on there, you've got our email addresses as well, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.